Kia ora and welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, where once again we'll be looking into plenty of Super Rugby action. A little bit of a look back at how Sam Tutupo, last week's guest, went in the fight for life, and the short story is that it was a short story. And the rest of the teams, the Chiefs, the Crusaders, how that game went, what that means for the rest of the competition, the Blues, the big win over in Fiji, which isn't an easy one. And of course there was the Brumbies and the Hurricanes, where the Hurricanes came on top. The top five, how that's shaping. We'll have a good look at what it is and why, and also a bunch of questions from you at home about the All Blacks 9s and 10s, about Northern Hemisphere players and how their bigger, more physical approach, as mentioned last week by Sam Tutupo, could affect the All Blacks and the way that they play. So, no further ado, James Parsons in studio. Very well, very well. And over in Japan, Bryn Hall, who's off, well, a week of postseason celebrations and looking in pretty good, stead, really.
Oh, he's had a week to recover.
There wasn't a lot of recovering, lads, but no, it's good to be back. I think enjoyed watching you guys last week, and obviously Sam Tutupo with the great knockout in what was the first 12 seconds. So, good to be back, lads, and I'm looking forward to really diving in and talking about what happened on the weekend.
Yeah, it was good. In fact, I was on my way to the stadium and I missed it.
Oh, actually?
Yeah, because it was over before I actually got to my seat.
My God. I must admit, I was seriously impressed with how, he was just straightforward, but I'm going to knock him out round one. I can't let it go to round 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. He's backing himself. But then when you saw it, it was like, holy dooly, he did not miss.
Those of you who missed it, this is what it looked like.
Sam Tutupo straight away decides he'll just, whoa, no, straight up, early in the ring, oh my goodness, whoa, oh my goodness. I was going to say, he needs to lift his hands from the start. His hands were very, very low. Sam Tutupo, he saw that, bridge that gap really fast, a number of shots at him, direct with the right hand, followed up the left hook.
So to say that that was a comprehensive win would probably be an understatement. I actually ran into Sam afterwards in the hallway and he felt really bad. He felt really bad. At the same time, it was kind of it's either you or me situation.
Tell you what, he might have we see a lot of players crossing over into boxing. Man, he might have a future in it.
Yeah, he can throw.
Definitely in fight for life. I'm sure they'll want to get him back.
Yeah.
Don't know how many people would be stepping up to fight him now.
Yeah, especially when he's fighting up a weight division as well.
Oh my gosh.
Roy's not a small bloke. He looked in the ring too. So, speaking of knockouts, the Chiefs, they beat the Crusaders. Not exactly a knockout blow, but they looked pretty good in the second half and finished it off.
I think it was impressive the way, it probably wasn't going their way, especially in that first half, a lot of time on D. But we've spoken about the defence time and time again. They're catching teams behind game line, forcing errors, and not allowing, I suppose, the Crusaders to capitalise on all the position and territory they had. And I suppose that breakdown battle was always going to be a key part. And when it mattered, the Chiefs picked up turnovers in their 22. I think Sam Cane got one really early when the pressure was on. But these sides are really close. It's... you look at the Blues Crusaders last year and obviously that result with the Blues winning down in Christchurch. I don't think with the Crusaders you can ever think you're on top of them.
One of the few Crusaders fans that I know that has two eyes came to me and said, look, I feel after watching that match, Bryn, that this is a tournament that we can win.
100%. And look, I think at the moment, you'd have to think the Chiefs have their number considering it's 2 weeks during the regular season, which has never been done in Scott Roberts' tenure, which I know will add a bit of fuel to his fire and that group knowing them. But yeah, I think they're not that far away, and I say that as a one-eyed Crusader. But what I mean is that 2 tries were disallowed in that first half, and they had dominantly all the possession in the church in that first 30 minutes. But coming back to the Chiefs tackling at 93% and only missing 12 tackles out of 192, and that's some pretty impressive numbers. They're very similar to the semi-final last year that actually Clayton touched on after the game around defence winning championships. Chips alluded to it a lot during this podcast and how important it is. And this team, the Chiefs has it at the moment. 2 things that I think the Crusaders are missing out on at the moment. They're really missing Ethan Blackadder, and getting him back I think is going to be really crucial in bringing a bit of a hard steel to to that pack. And that's not to say Don Garner isn't going well, but I think the level of what Ethan Bladdock can do for that group in and around the breakdown area, the efficiency of the breakdown, cleaning, and his ball carries as well will be very pivotal. But I think they're also missing Will Jordan. And I think Fergus Burke has been great in the back three, and he's obviously come in for Richie as a 10, but he's done a great job with 15. But I think you look at the way that Richie, when he attacks the line, you talk around the pod system and then getting out to then be able to play out off him. Will Jordan does some great work roving around that area to really hold the defences of that fourth and fifth defender, because he's floating in and around Richie. I don't think you saw on the weekend Richie able to go at the line off those pod runners at all. And that obviously comes back to, I think, teams identifying that fourth, fifth, sixth defender. You've got to be really good defensively, knowing that Richie's going to be there. But the animation of what Will can do in that space, whether that be a little chip in behind, inside, outside, then roving off Davey with a second pivot, I think they're missing that at the moment. But at the moment, the Chiefs have got their number, but I know there'll be a lot of guys that are going to be coming back, the two players that I talked about, and you'd like to think that hopefully if they do finish second, they get another shot at the Chiefs. But at the moment, the Chiefs are at a very good in a very good space, and I think winning the way that they did, 93% tackle rate, was one of the reasons why they got the job done on the weekend.
I think also, like going back to Brad Weber a couple of weeks ago, the game management from Damien himself was pretty spot on. Like, they didn't play too much footy in their half. Sometimes when you don't have a lot of ball, you try to play it when you get it, and it's leads to turnovers and so forth. But they just kept putting it up there, and then when they came out in that second half, and we've said this over the years that Bryn was all in the Crusaders, that when they get into 22, they come away with points, but when they get the opportunity, they come away with points. And both times when they were given that, they took it. And I think that's a big step in the direction of, if they are in finals footy, they've got the composure. Even when behind late, it was no given they were going to win that. But they just didn't look ever flustered. That there is quite a lot of baggage for a number of teams when the Crusaders get in front late. Normally they'll go into their way and they'll be clinical enough to finish that game out. So really impressive effort from the Chiefs.
Scott Robertson announced, obviously, last week that he's going to keep Jason Ryan as forwards coach. He's going to bring in Scott Hansen as D coach, Leon McDonald as attack, along with Jason Holland to assist Leon McDonald on attack. That's a few major signings in the way that we shape up for next year. Brendan, maybe start with you. You've spent a fair bit of time, because Scott Hansen is probably the person on this list that people don't really know. They might have seen him in a mid-game interview between the Chiefs and the Crusaders on the weekend, where he showed that he's a combative customer.
What has been the key difference? Because it's been a lot different from that game in round one.
We're in round what now? That's the difference.
All the best.
Thank you.
But what do we need to know about Scott Hansen?
Well, that's a really good way to put it there, Ross, because look, he's fiery, he's competitive. He's a former halfback, and a lot of halfbacks strip they're competitive to the core. So what he does do, he's got a great amount of relentlessness when it comes to his preparation and his work side. Look, the guy's consistently in his computer, putting out clips for the team, whether that be insides group or just collectively as a team, and his work rate around that is really, really good. And I think the one thing about Scott that I love about him is it's his accountability. His accountability in and around knowing you're off, you're not going to know. He's not afraid to be able to give you a hard word around getting that right, and then also having the ability to be able to understand a person's personality, to maybe give them a pat on back to get the job done. And some people probably think, if you're working as an attack coach, is it going to be beneficial moving into the defensive side? I think sometimes, even more so as a coach, when you're on the attacking side, you're always in defensive meetings. You're talking to defensive coaches in and around, how can we be better? What would a defensive mindset of coach be thinking in and around the attack? And he's also had experience with Japan, being a defense coach. So I don't see it too much of as a problem. And you can probably say that with Scott Robertson as well, how much he values him and what he's able to do for Razor since he's been there. So those key attributes are going to be massive for the All Blacks. And I know going into the environment, even though he's been working on the attacking side of the ball, he's actually been in. We've had some really good defensive coaches at the Crusaders, when it be with Andrew Goodman at his time there, and Tamani Ellison currently, who's a really good defensive coach. So he's probably more so known that as the coach now. He's probably going to be a little bit more inclined in defensive meetings to stay on, and I guess having more influence around how things have been run and what it looks like in the game. And again, he's watching clips from Leinster and La Rochelle in the Heineken Cup. So he's consistently watching code. So it's really exciting, I think, for the All Blacks and having Scott Hansen there as coach.
To Leon McDonald, the attack coach for the All Blacks. You've both played under him?
Yep.
Yeah. Jip,
Yep.
when you think about Leon McDonald, I suppose, from what you've seen of him as a head coach, because you played under him as a head coach, right?
Yep.
What did you like about him?
He was the attack coach.
He was the attack coach
as well.
Yeah, right.
So his role was attack coach. Just the simplicity of his ideas, and he's just big on. He was awesome in terms of the repetition. Like, he wasn't looking to create something out of nothing. It would be the same thing over and over and over again, so that we were consistent in our lines, consistent in our skill set, so that when it came under pressure, it was almost second nature. And simplicity makes it easy in terms of the breakdown as well. You know where you're going to be, what your role is, and then I suppose the detail he would go into as a coach in terms of looking at the opposition and knowing where certain things may work, and I suppose the clip work. Like, that's such a big role for coaches, that sort of previewing the opposition and coming up with how your system, without changing too much, is going to break them down. He's a details man, very passionate, very competitive, and I think he'll be exceptional in that role.
One of the things I used to love at Blues training was watching all of the coaches play a touch game at the end of training on a Thursday,
Yeah.
And you'd see him, and he's still in good shape.
Yeah.
And you'd see him having a crack in this touch game and going.
He'd join our ones and just go full tit. Like, he's. But I think that's why everyone loves him. He wears his heart on his sleeve and he cares, and he backs it up with his hard work ethic in terms of what he delivers.
Bryn, how did he work with Razor?
Oh, I think it was, from what I saw, they got along really, really well. And I think, they've obviously got that understanding, playing together in the All Blacks, and especially the Crusaders, and winning so much down there. There's also, that's just the fact that they obviously get along. But, those are the two things that I put around for Leon, was around his preparation. And, a lot of people would think, what's changed the Blues? You'd have to think, right, before he came in, there was obviously a lot of coaches that had come through, they weren't getting it right. But the things that Jip's talking around, the preparation and the attention to detail, making it very easy. But sometimes it's really boring running that line through the week. You might run that hard line on the edge 15 times during the week, and that's what you need to do consistently to be able to get the ball where it needs to go. And under pressure, when you've done that for 5, 6 games, 7 games, running the same lines, getting the right preparation every single week, you as an individual within that position, it's really easy to be able to execute your role. And that's why you're seeing now the Blues are so consistent, almost winning a title last year, and why they're now in the conversations of winning championships, due to those kind of things that Rangi's brought in. But I think one thing that he did really, really well with my time, I only got to spend 1 year with him, but I think just knowing that he was an All Black, he was a Centurion at the time with the Crusaders. So when he spoke to you, you really cared and you understood that he was coming from a good place, and his understanding around communicating to players in big moments and big games, especially in finals and around those tight games, he could bring the best out of you as a player. And he's, there's just a few things he did say to me on game day or something. I was like, oh yeah, that really resonates with me. I'm like, yeah, that's what I needed to hear. And Rangi had a really good ability to be able to do that. So that's really powerful as a coach. If you've got the preparation side, like we've talked about, he's competitive, and you know he's competitive because you can see it off in the field when he's playing a game of touch, or even more so when he loses. You don't want to be anywhere around Rangi when he loses, because he's that competitive and doesn't want to talk to you for like probably 24, 48 hours. But, all those attributes, I think it's really important. And a lot of that coaching staff that Razor's selected has those traits. So as a player, you can only get behind that. And I only had Rangi for a year, Leon for a year, but all those points that Jip's touched on, and the one that I just said, it's really powerful as a coach, and he's got it.
I think as well, just to add to the way he articulates his points is really simple as well. Like, it's not hard to understand, which makes it a lot easier to get things in motion. I was just thinking, even just the little things around his details. An example, when he first came to the Blues, I won't give the meterage because it's probably his IP, but he drew lines down the field to show the perfect width for forwards to stand off the breakdown, which I just thought, he's proactive in his approach. He's like, I need to see it, you guys in this position. I'm not seeing it. I'm actually sick of yelling at you all.
Yeah.
This. I'm going to make it really clear where you need to be, and it's amazing, and that gives you so much confidence because then it works.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I get it, and it just flows on from there. But he doesn't just accept he doesn't just say to himself, "Oh, I'm just going to keep yelling at them." He was like, "There must be a way," and then came up with that, and that was like the key to all of us, realising and changing our habits to fit within, the new system.
The good thing about Leon as well is that he's actually done it at different levels, bringing teams up from the depth. You think in Tasman, when he got there, obviously they had a bit of success in and around with Kieran Kane there, but the consistency of where you see the Marco now, and obviously they won with Andrew Goodman, but the things that he's instilled within that program to then be able to be, I guess, very similar to where the Blues are now, contesting for championships, getting All Blacks, getting Super Rugby contracts when they're at Tasman. He's got a really good ability of getting the young players to then come up and being able to be professional rugby players and then All Blacks as well. So it's another string to his bow that he's got the ability to be able to do.
But he's going to be working assisted by Jason Holland, the current Hurricanes head coach. How will that work between the two of them?
Well, the only way I can explain it probably now at the Blues, I suppose, Leon's that sort of phase play attack structure, and Dan Halangahu runs all the back strikes off scrums, line-outs, and does the skill stuff. Leon helps out with the skill stuff. He does a lot of stuff with the forwards. But yeah, I'd say it's similar to that, I'm guessing. I'd say Jason Holland's probably doing that back strikes role, as well as probably leading the skills.
I might go to a few of our viewer questions if we've got the chance, because we have been looking for you to engage, and we've been so happy with the way you've engaged with us throughout the season. But the first person to get up and shoot us a video and tell us what they think and get our opinion on what we think about what they've got to say is someone called Sigrun Owen. Now, Sigrun, thank you very much for sending us this video.
My question is, what do you think is the best 9-10 combination in Super Rugby Pacific? And do you think that they should be the ones to lead the All Blacks? I think it's Cortez Ratima and Damien McKenzie, and I think their free-flowing aggressive style would be really hard for teams like Ireland and France to deal with. What do you think?
Go to Bryn first, because I always pipe up on these questions. It's probably more appropriate that the back on the show talks to it. It's
a hard sell to be able to have both 9 and 10 as your list. I think Damien's obviously started, and we've had talks around him possibly having an opportunity to play at 10. I think Cortez Ratima, it's just going to take time. You've obviously got Brad Weber, who's there at the moment, and look, I was actually quite surprised at how early they took Brad off, but it must just show what Cortez Ratima, the way he's playing, and the ability within and around that group and the trainings to have the coaches trust him to come on such a big stage so early on. But he's definitely one for the future. I think, post 2024, you've got, you'd have to think, TJ Perenara, Aaron Smith, and Brad Weber will probably moving on at their age. And then, Cortez Ratima in 2024, I think he'll be, I think it'll probably be him and Noah Hotham, I think, are two guys that I think coming through. We're going to hear those names coming forward in 2024. But to answer your question, I don't think at this stage, those two.
Sigrun, if you want to go back and watch an episode we did with Ben Darwin years ago.
Oh, yeah.
All about cohesion. He works for a company that consults sporting organisations about consistency of playing together, and he talked a lot about having that idea of having a 9 and 10 who play together all the time, being an international team. It's a really interesting thing, but when you got Aaron Smith and the 10s aren't down in the Highlanders, it's almost impossible to do it at the All Blacks.
Also, Weber's getting more minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
it's
if you go on Ben Darwin's theory, then it probably should be Weber.
Yeah, we should probably get Ben back on before the World Cup comes along, and he can tell us about which teams have had the most consistent selections and therefore will win this tournament. Actually. So we'll reach out to him and we'll get Ben on again on the show. But please go back and watch that. Search Ben Darwin, Aotearoa Rugby Pod on YouTube. You'll find the episode. It's a really interesting insight into what creates winning teams at World Cup time. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Make sure you keep in contact with us via the email, aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. Comment in the YouTube section. You can watch us on YouTube, watch us on Sky, see us on Rugby Pass, see us all over the place. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you again soon. Mā te wā.